everyone, welcome to DevSec. So today I have a Palo presentation. So Palo Go Bird. So this is going to be a little bit of intro on Palo, what Palo is, and hopefully a demo on how Palo works. We've had some problems getting that to work recently, so hopefully the demo actually works. So first, who is Palo? So Palo Alto Networks is a firewall company. That's about it. They founded in 2005. Big company, lots of money. Yeah, you probably don't care. Why use Palo? Because CCDC uses Palo. That's really the reason. They're also an industry leader and numbers. Look at that, numbers. Do you care about the numbers? Maybe. They are the current industry leader in firewall technology or something like that. But why do we actually use Palo? Because it's cool. It's a next generation firewall, which is a marketing buzzword. But what that means is instead of being a layer 2 or layer 3 firewall, it can operate at layer 2 and layer 3, but it also operates at layer 7. So that means it can do packet inspection beyond the source and destination of a packet. So if you know about pfSense, pfSense can do filtering on a specific port. So for example, you could only allow port 22 to a box, TCP 22. But you can't really restrict what flows over TCP 22. And since you can have non-standard services running over a port, it's kind of important to be able to actually restrict what flows over that port. So Palo, since it operates at layer 7, can do more deeper inspection on the packets and see like, hey, this packet is actually carrying SSH traffic over port 22, or hey, this packet's carrying, I don't know, web traffic over port 22, and then it can selectively allow and block based on that. So you could do something like allow SSH on only port 22, which is the default, or like block FTP just in general as a protocol. And it can also, what's very important for CCDC, is detect malware being sent over the network. So you can allow a bunch of traffic to flow, but if any of it's detected as malicious from they call it like Wildfire or something, which is their machine learning detecting malware thing. If it's detected as malware or malicious traffic, then that will be blocked. So you can like allow email downloads, but then it blocks files that have malicious executables in them. Kind of magic, but really cool. The other thing you can do is decrypt encrypted traffic. So you can do SSH decryption and see the commands or files that are actually being run and transferred over SSH. You can decrypt HTTPS traffic, so you can see like secure file downloads. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. So back here I said layer 2 or layer 3. So most firewalls only operate at that layer 3 level. But layer 2 and layer 3 have a slightly different meaning on Palo. So Palo has a bunch of different network setup modes. Its layer 3 network setup mode means that it acts like a router. So it's just your standard router, just like most other firewalls you get. But it also has layer 2 mode. So in layer 2 mode, it acts like a switch. So it forwards packets between different networks, but it doesn't actually have an IP assigned to any of its interfaces. This has been giving us a lot of problems in IA Lab because virtual networking doesn't really like it when you sniff packets on one network and send them out on another network, which is effectively what this does. But in a physical scenario with a real network and real cables and stuff, this layer 2 also works. And then there's also vWire, which is for only 2 interfaces, and that basically just hooks them together like a normal wire would, and the Palo pretends to not exist except for blocking traffic. And the benefit to those is that you can just place them in line in a network that already exists, and you don't really have to worry about like redoing your routing and stuff. And with vWire in particular, it's just kind of like a bump in the wire that suddenly has like deep packet inspection. So that's pretty cool. All right, so hopefully anyone who wants to follow along, this VApp has started already. So we have a VApp, and here's a quick small network diagram of it. You have 2 servers and a client that are on a LAN network. This is the Palo right here. I forgot to label that. All right. And then you also have another box called the Intranet, which is on a completely separate subnet, and that's like emulating random box on the internet. So let's go over here. So here's some basic console commands. You can configure Palo via the console or via the web interface, but first you have to start on the console because the Palo doesn't really know what you want configured. So if we hop over here, it should be DF203. Hopefully it's going to work this time. Like that. So the username is going to be admin, password is going to be password1bang. If it doesn't work for you, then the VApp has not been on for long enough. So it will say like password failed, even if you got the password right. I don't really understand why, but it takes a long time to boot. But after like 5 minutes, then it'll just start working.
Is there any chance you can make that bigger?
Any chance I can make that bigger? Hopefully. Maybe not. Shane, how do I make it bigger?
I don't know.
Neither do I. Oh, actually, I can do. Can I do this? Oh, I can do that. That is so jank. I think that's the thing I said last time when I did that exact same thing. Can you see that? You can see that. All right, cool. So, oh boy, lots of stuff. All right, so there's 2 different modes. So there's this mode right here where you have that little caret at the end, which I can't use the mouse on the screen, but yeah, so there's a little caret at the end, and then there's configure mode. So if you type configure, that's the little number sign at the end. So configure mode, you're editing a JSON-looking configuration object. So this is the whole configuration for like everything. So in configure mode, you are editing that big JSON-looking object thing. In the normal mode, exit. This is for doing things like shutting down the system, or I don't really know. I don't use this mode for much else. I mean, you can like show info, I think. Yeah, I don't really remember any of the commands for this mode. I don't use this mode very often. You can do a request, shut down system. That's the only thing I use in this mode, pretty much. Normally, you want to be in configure mode. So in configure mode, we have this massive, disgusting config object, which is very easy to navigate because you can do edit and then a section. So if we want to edit the device config section, device config, you just do edit device config. And now it says at the top, you really can't see that because I can't do the mouse on the screen. But right there, it says edit device config. So now if we do show, there's less config options. I mean, there's still a lot, but there's less. All right, so it's like jumping into one of these little like indents there. Yeah. Cool. So we want to do edit system. So we're right here. This is a lot less stuff, and you can see. Yeah, there we go. So that's like device config system. That's all the config for. So first thing we want to do is set the IP address so we can open up the web interface. Because although the console is really nice and can be a lot faster for some things, in general, it's a lot nicer to just be able to click buttons in the config. Yeah, so another important thing to note is on the Palo, it has 3 interfaces. So like pfSense, if you've worked with that before, has 2 interfaces. There's kind of like the WAN and the LAN. Palo has 3. So there's WAN and LAN, but then there's also this first one, which is a management interface. Since Palo is a fancier firewall, this interface is like just the management port. You don't have any of the normal like routing and stuff on it. And this one acts like a client on the network. This is where the Palo downloads updates from and stuff like that. Since these ones could be in like layer 2 mode where it wouldn't have an IP address or anything, this one has to be layer 3, just like a normal client on the network. So we're going to set the IP address for that. So we get to run this fun stuff right here. So we did edit device config system. So now we're in that system, the device config system directory kind of. So we want to first new thing. You have to do set type static. So now at the top, that system type is set to static. Before it was DHCP something something something. Yeah. So then we can do set IP address. There's really nice tab completion on Palo, by the way. And I'm going to set 192.168.1.1. And then we want our net mask to be 255.255.255.0. Default gateway. Actually, no, we want the IP address to be 1.2, not 1.1. Because we're not crazy. Default gateway is 1.1. There we go. That looks like about what I have here. Yeah, and so you could do all these commands. You could do like set IP address, just the IP address if you want, like that. Or you could like chain them together like this. So that's kind of cool. And if we do show again, then that's kind of hard to see. Here we go. If we do show again, you can see it's that in the config. And then we also got to set DNS servers. So set uh-oh. Where did I go? Primary. There we go. All right, so config looks like that. Cool. All right, and then the very important thing to do after you make any config changes is commit. So you just type commit and let it run, and it will think for a while. So unlike other firewalls, well, unlike your home router, I guess, when you make a change on there, which there's not really a ton of firewall rules there, but like if you port forward something, I don't know. Normally that commits instantly, like you just click apply and then it works. Or in the PF sense, when you make rule changes, there's that little green box that pops up that's like, hey, click here to apply the changes. Same thing in Palo, so you can make a bunch of changes and then you have to click commit. And it takes forever. And it yells at you. I don't know why it yells at you for that, but I was fine. I found that it worked fine, even though it yelled at you for that. So now we're going to swap over to the client machine and hope that it still works fine. All right, so that's should hopefully be done with command line. So we're going to swap to the client machine, and if you didn't know, in Linux, you can use this handy command to set a temporary IP address if you just need an IP and are otherwise configured for DHCP. Zoom. Look at that pixelated interface. It's great. So what's that? IP address. And you have to be sudo for that. All right, so now if we do IPA, you should have right there, we have that address set. Now, hopefully, assuming that the Palo actually had time to commit, which it looks like it did, hey, look at that, we can ping it. Cool. All right, something works. That's a start. That's not a click. So now we can open up the web interface. So for the web interface, you have to make sure to go to 192.168.1.2, well, or whatever IP you set, but make sure it's HTTPS. Ooh. Everything's fine. All right, and look at that, web interface login. Everyone's happy. So from here, default credentials are admin, password 1bang again. And hopefully, it'll actually work this time. It'd be really awkward if it didn't. That's kind of awkward. And look at that, dashboard loaded. I'm a god. Or that's what my mom tells me. Let's see. Phone command to make screen bigger. All right, so now we have the web interface. Yay! We can start actually configuring stuff. You can just dismiss all the pop-ups. No one cares about their telemetry. So we have a bunch of config tabs up here. Yeah, hopefully that's obvious. Cool. So network config, that's where we're going to go. So we have, back to this diagram, we have those three interfaces on the Palo. So this one is the management interface. So it's that device config system IP address. That's where you set the IP for this one. This is Ethernet 1/1. So that's right here, the first interface listed in here. Goes 139. You can't add more, which is sad. Yeah, since this is a virtual Palo. A physical one would have like one for each of their physical interfaces. So we can click that first interface and wait 1 to 2 business days for it to load. So first thing is interface type. So we're going to want this to be layer 3, which means that it gets an IP address, because layer 2 is broken. Yeah. So layer 3, right down there. Then we need to assign it to a virtual router. So you can just click default. That should work. And then we need a security zone for it. So security zones are a cool thing in Palo and in more advanced firewalls. So in pfSense, you do zoning based on like, your WAN interface, your LAN interface, your whatever interface. In Palo, you can do it based on interfaces, but you can also do it based on security zones. So maybe you have like 2 ports for one of your interfaces for some reason. You can just assign them to the same zone, and you can make rules based on that zone. It also allows you to make rules that are like intra-zone or inter-zone rules. So this is the first interface, so we're going to call this our WAN zone. Yeah, that's pretty much all you need to do. Just say WAN there. The rest of that should be pretty automatic. And that looks about right, so click OK. That'll load forever. Just going to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh yeah, change your password, by the way. Yeah. Cool. Then, assuming that something works there. Yeah, it's thinking. All right, so now we can go to the next one. It's going to be that same very slow process again, where we're going to select layer 3. Default virtual router, and we're going to make a new zone, and this one's going to be the LAN. I assume you can see that. Hopefully. So I like to, when I'm working on stuff like this, commit a lot, since committing takes a long time. So I just commit and then click close. So you click through here and then click close. And now it's committing in the background while we go and click through things. So on this virtual router, we click this. Yeah, all right, cool. So hopefully, assuming I clicked everything right, it's gonna be loading up. Oh yeah, we should do. We gotta do more stuff, right? So we should go back to here. So one more thing I forgot to do is actually set IPs on these interfaces. That might be kind of important. Yeah. The interface is very, very, very speedy. That was sarcasm. Maybe. Holy crap, why is it so slow? I don't know why this is so slow. Probably doesn't have enough cores. All right, so let's see, this is the WAN interface. So on the WAN interface, we can just click DHCP client, and the rest of this, the default settings should work here. So I was just going to give it DHCP on the WAN. That's standard for most routers. Then on the LAN, maybe zoom very fast. Under IP address, we can give it that 192.168.1.1/24. All right, so now new changes to commit. All right, so that's committing in the background. Let's see, I don't think I got anything else around here. All right, so assuming that worked, which I guess I probably should have left that commit window open so we can see. We should have internet soon. Maybe. All right, now we don't have internet yet because I forgot firewall rules. Haha, because it's firewall. Okay, so now that let's see. Okay. Oh, that's not the right one. Yeah, cool. Okay. We don't need to do NAT and DHCP currently. So we do need an allow all rule. Right now, there's two rules that are by default on here. So there's an interzone default and an intrazone default. So interzone means like between two zones. So it's going from one zone to another. And that one over here, you can see the action is deny. So basically by default, all traffic going from one zone to a different zone is getting blocked. And intrazone default, that's going between the same zone, all of that traffic is by default allowed, right there. So we can hopefully, maybe, God, interfaces, very slow today. All right, we can add a rule. So in bottom, right there, says add. Click that, and we can add a rule. So the rule, we're gonna call this allow all. So for source, any, destination, any, application, any, service, any, or I guess application default, but it should be any, and allow. So assuming I did that one right, yep, we can click commit, and now the internet should work. Maybe. I don't know, I probably forgot something. Yeah, so the firewall rules, oh boy, wow, too fast. So you can do some cool stuff with these. There are under application. So normally when you would add an application in like pfSense, you'd say like, you know, port 22 TCP or something like that. But in Palo, when you add an application, you say SSH as the application. And boom, right there, SSH. That's the application. You don't have to like remember the port number. And that's great until you need to remember like, I don't know, what SMB application is called. And there's like, actually there's only one SMB application. I don't know what it is. There's like, LDAP? No, I don't remember what it is. Oh yeah, there's like a bunch of different ones that aren't so straightforward. Like for example, web browsing, right there, that's HTTP. It doesn't say HTTP, but that's HTTP. Or HTTPS is SSL, right there. Don't know why, but, well, I mean, I do know why. It's because it's an SSL connection. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. So if you wanted to, for example, allow SSH, then you just add that application. Then under service URL category, this is more specific under that specific application. So you can make different profiles or for different services that are of that application type. So generally you just want application default. But if you had something like, for example, SSL on here, since SSL can be a lot of things, you could have HTTPS be the specific thing that you wanted to allow. Yeah, since SSL could also be something else. Actions, pretty straightforward. You have deny, allow, and drop. Deny is the same as reject. And reset, optionally reset to one of them. And logging, that will make it appear in the nice monitor window. Other than that, like under source and destination, you can pick zones. So you could say like source zone LAN, and you could also do like specific IP addresses or specific users. Now I think that this rule's committed, hopefully. So let's see if we can actually get internet access. Oh, that's fun. And we don't have DHCP on here. Right. Let me swap to a different box, which is configured. Interesting. All right, that still doesn't work. And I'm not sure why. So I'm going to actually switch to a different environment where I have a working Palo, because I don't want to debug this. Dyslexic fingers go burr. So this is a test environment I have set up. I assume I probably broke networking somehow in this lab, but I don't really want to figure it out. So I have a different test environment that I've been working on all day today with Eric. And hopefully this one's gonna work. This one's a little bit more set up. In fact, I have maybe, look at that, all those rules, tons of firewall rules. Cool. I'll go through and explain a few of them in a minute, but this one is actually set up for layer 2, which means that basically nothing works, but the policies still work, so that's kind of cool. So, I think that's all I have for under slides. Okay, so more explaining here. So, sorry everything's slow today and broken. It's my fault. Shane agrees with me. God, even this one's running slow. This one has 8 cores. Right, so here's some example rules I have for an example environment setup. So for example, on this host, so here's a rule called DC1. So from I could specifically put like the LAN here, but any also works because I wanted it to be accessible from the LAN as well. Destination to the DMZ. So I have this zone called DMZ on this Palo instead of LAN, but whatever zone you put here would work. To this specific address, so you can assign aliases. So this one's called DC1, which is just an alias for 192.168.110. And then the application is MSDS SMB, which is just SMB, and MSRDP. So SMB and RDP, default on both of those, and we're allowing that. Yeah, so that's an example rule. Or over here we have, like, I don't know, this is all of the garbage required for a Windows domain. So this is from the LAN, so any devices on the LAN, to the DMZ, specifically to both of the domain controllers in the DMZ. We're allowing all of this garbage, which is Windows domain, so like Active Directory, DNS, Kerberos, LDAP, all of that fun stuff, and allowing that. That's fun. Yeah, any questions so far? Cool. All right. Yeah, so under objects, you have like aliases. Yeah, I think that's about all I can do right now because I know this environment is definitely broken. And the other one, I think routing is broken in that one too. I don't know why routing is so broken today. Yeah. Another cool thing is under monitor, you can pull up traffic logs. So we can see like logs where everything went, and we can see some fun stuff like testing earlier today. Lots of pinging back and forth, or well, this is only in one direction. Yeah, fun stuff. Kind of boring when my environment is borked, but cool. Any questions? Yeah, I don't know.
So what do you do for our CCDC team again?
Good point. I break stuff. Yeah, I honestly thought this network would work this time, but yeah, I guess it's still broken.
Your API worked for one thing, so that's cool.
My API worked. Low bar. Yeah, I'm not sure why this one did not work. I would assume that I messed up IP addresses on these guys, but that works. But that works. But that doesn't work. And that still doesn't work. Interesting. Potentially, this doesn't get DHCP. Well, that's all I have. I don't know why this environment's broken, but honestly, I'm not really that surprised.